Okay, ji, Assalamu alaikum. Session number 3 of the Visions Bootcamp by SPIRE. And we are going to be discussing the worldview today. So, some of the reading material is linked here. I'm going to mention it. I'm also going to go over the contents of that reading material because it is extremely dry. I have to admit there are two articles that I want you to read as as supplement to this session, and they are extremely dry. My advice is to read it to a friend, to read the material to another friend who will give you feedback, who will discuss it with you, and that will keep you awake. Because I was making the session, so I was awake and I was reading the material. But reading it alone, unless you are a psychologist or a historian, will be a little hard. Okay, so let's just begin. Basically, hmm, hello. Okay, my system. Okay, now good. System was stuck. So the second assignment that I gave and has come back from the participants was letting go. And the questions that I asked was that I feel that I'm a victim of the following factors in my life. Everybody has things in their life that they blame. I'm not rich enough. I'm not pretty enough. I was not dealt with fairly. The world is so unfair. Life is so unfair. So, and then people say that if I did not face these circumstances, I would have really attained my vision. I would have made something of myself. Tiktakana, the thing is that when you go over today's session and when we discuss how important a worldview is, I want you to keep in mind that you have a worldview and that your worldview will change today. And people that you are dealing with, your relationships, your colleagues, your families, they have their own worldviews. So we have to live according to our worldview and we have to pay respect to their worldview as well. We cannot make somebody see something that they're not ready to see. Okay. Then I scored such and such in victimhood mentality. And I told you that nobody will fail this test because the whole world it has been researched in big groups, in groups of hundreds of people. Everybody has a victimhood mentality in this world. This means that I have potential to develop or actually have victimhood mentality. And I can do the following 5 things to stop falling into victimhood mentality. And I have to say that both the sets of answers that I received have very satisfactorily dealt with this part. I mean, people know what they need to do to stop falling victim, to stop feeling like a victim. Okay, then I know that self pity is a dangerous state of mind, and I'll have a pity party. And I loved the thing that you sent. I mean, I know who I'm talking to, and it was extremely entertaining. And I mean, of course, I keep all the assignments, but this is one assignment that I'm going to really keep. And and my advice is to keep having these pity parties to everybody who's listening, even somebody who's not a part of this camp but is listening to this video. The pity party is one thing that brings everything into focus. At least if you have it once a month, you can have it once a week if you want to. I do it once a month, and it's extremely refreshing. Okay, then look at your list carefully of the pity party, and then why you feel self pity. And then the exercise. And again, I have to say that one assignment that I received, I wish I could share it. But of course, there are many personal things in there. And this how and why and all is just amazing. You have dealt very well with this. I mean, the sequence of thinking. uh, so and then I compare myself, and that also is a very genuine exercise. We are not looking for answers, we are not looking for solutions, we just compare ourselves. And why do we compare ourselves? So this was the assignment that was given before this session, and now let's go on to the main session. I have 3 questions for you, and whoever is watching, I want you to write down these questions. These questions are going to make up the rest of the discussion that we are having. So, how has your worldview changed over the past 5 years? I'll tell you, how my worldview has changed. I was living in a different country. I was working in a completely different atmosphere, completely different environment. I was in a completely different family dynamic. I had an extended family and I had stuff going on. And whoever is watching here, we know I was living in Peshawar. So, and then there were things that I needed to do, and I was extremely unwilling to leave that part, to leave where I was living and what I was doing, to step into this new role of being a grandmother and of being a mother-in-law. Although it was not that I was unwilling to become a mother-in-law or a grandmother, but the responsibilities were daunting because I had never been in these two roles before. And now I think that it was the best decision that I took. It was the best thing that I could do for myself because the way I was looking at the world was as a professional who had a social circle and who had what she thought was a good life. When in reality, there is so much more to life than really there is, what I thought. Then have you been through days when your worldview changed in a matter of hours or days? I can tell you that worldview can change in a matter of seconds. And being a doctor, I have seen it too frequently. How much of your worldview is not based on anything external to your inner self? Now, that question, remember, we did the persona, the Jungian stages, where self actualization is something where I separate the face that I wear for the world from from my real inner self. But for that, I have to know what my inner self is. It's so hard to even think that I have an inner self that is completely different from the face that I'm wearing in front of you, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we have social constructs, we have social norms, and we have to abide by. We have religious norms, but the thing is that the worldview should not be coming from just the superficial persona. Worldview is something that comes from inside, and that is, you have to think about it very carefully. I'm giving you the three questions. It's like I'm leaking the exam in front of you before you even open the question paper. So you have to really think, the way I look at this world, how much of it is my own and how much of it is because of people's opinions. I think the world is a very cruel place because there are so many wars going on. But in reality, how many wars are going on around you? Or how many wars have you seen, to feel miserable? So that is something that I want you to really think about, really ponder on. Okay, Ji. Now, the practical application of the worldview. Okay, I can develop a good worldview. I have traveled the world, I have performed Hajj, I have studied the Quran, so I have a worldview. But what is the practical application? The way I think of this world, how much of that am I applying in my life is the question. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. That will keep you awake. So here is the article, and you can check the article when I send you the PowerPoint. It's very good reading. It is a blog, somebody's blog from medium.com, and it's a good blog. So, okay, so I have a worldview. I know that the world is such and such place, and I know myself. I'm this person. I like this. I dislike this. The main question is, how then shall we live? Okay, so now that I know so many things, okay, not a boring lecture, thank you. Now that I know what my worldview is, how am I going to live? Because if I don't live according to my worldview, imagine this, it's a fracture. This is my worldview, and this is my real life. And then, if I'm not living according to my worldview, I have a fracture in my personality. Every time I do something, I'll be reminded this is not according to my worldview. And that is a bad place to be. That is where victimhood and self-pity are born. I like this, I want this, and but this. So that is the dark place where we start feeling like victims, where we develop self pity, where we are unhappy, and where we do not realize our full potential. So these are parts of the article that I linked there, and in all fairness to you, I'm going to go over some parts of that article. So the depth of a worldview is determined by how deep a level of thought. How much did you really think before making an opinion? There's some people who are very superficial, who would look at somebody and would just say, and there's a very famous story actually of one of our ancestors, and it's a Pashto story. So interesting, all of you understand Pashto. So once a wise man was going with his followers, and they saw a dead horse. It was smelling, and it had ants, and it had flies, and it was supposed to be a test. So the wise man was selecting somebody who would be the next wise man, or who would be the next professor, or whatever. So somebody said, God, this smells bad. And somebody says, God, like worms are eating this poor horse. Oh my God, this poor horse. This, until one of the students said, how, what, sona khaistaga khune di. That's what he said. So the teacher said that he's going to be the next sage, because he could see beauty even in this, even in death, even in rot, and even in filth. He focused on the beauty. So the thing is how superficial it is, the worldview, or how practical, or how fundamental, or how philosophical. These are the four classes that this person has described, the one who wrote the blog. Now, the superficial level, and I'm not going to read everything for you, I just copy pasted it from the article, but I'd like to read a quote for you. Superficial people are those who simply go along without a question in the world, asking nothing. So these are the good students, the achhe bache in the classes. Um, they're troubled by nothing. They're examining nothing. Whatever people around them do, they do too. This is a sad and plastic life routine, and comfortable maybe, but still sad. I really love this quote. And this person has said, I will only read the third point. It is important to note that even though the person may not care much for or have ever considered the deeper levels of their worldview, when they live by the superficial level, so there are people there, so even we are, so many people who are living according to a superficial worldview, at least in some parts of our lives. They are still living according to a world. We cannot say that you don't have a worldview. That's not right. Being superficial is also a worldview. Okay. Then is the practical level. And the practical level is, I'll just read the second point. Having not carefully and rationally considered the reasons and justification. So one is, I do nothing. Okay. The next is, let's do something. But let's do something has not really thought about why they're doing something. Let's do something. These are the rebels in the class. I keep saying this because I've been a teacher for too long, and I was that kind of a student who was always a rebel, but who was really liked by the teachers somehow. I don't know why, but I would do weird things in the class without having any rhyme or reason. And they do not necessarily know the principles and values. So they haven't studied their worldview. They have a worldview and they act upon it, but they haven't studied it. Okay. They do strive to live a consistent pattern of habits, and those habits do produce the results that they desire. So many of us, especially the professionals here, we are at this level, but we still don't know why we do what we do. We haven't thought about it. Let's just say we don't know is no. We haven't really thought about it. Maybe we don't have time to think about it. Then is the fundamental level. And this is also a rather, sounds dangerous, strongly held views and principles. And since all of us are Muslims here, let's just say that this is the system of beliefs like Islam that can be practically applied to life, and that does justify why the way one lives. I do this because Allah will be upset with me if I don't. I don't do this because Allah doesn't like it. So I have a basic set of beliefs that I was given when I was a baby. And she begins to really solidify the reasons and justifications. Now, it is like an elastic rubber band. One end is where it starts. The other end, the more you stretch it, the more dangerous it becomes. This is where fundamentalists are born. This is where we think that, my way or the highway. Because मैं तो अल्लाह के लिए बात कर रही हूँ. ज़ुखो अल्लाह दा पारा खबरा कोम, ज़ुखो गलता खबरा न कोम, बिल्कुल. So they can identify what their values are and what the principles are guiding their thinking and behavior. But these individuals end up becoming really proud of their worldview. Most of us are like that. Most of us who believe that we are practicing Muslims, we fall into this category. Sorry to say, I'm including myself. बस अल्लाह पाक दा से वेली दिनो ज़ुखो अल्लाह दा पारा खबरा कोम चाबा ने सिंगम लगी खैर दे. This is how I think, this is what I do, this is how it is, this is how it's supposed to be. Okay, so, and the more you stretch the rubber band, the more we fail to see other people's worldview, the more we become intolerant. And finally, is the philosophical level. Now, they call it the philosophical level. Honestly, if I could manipulate it, if I had a say in this, is it wrong to feel that way? I'm going to explain it. Usma. Okay. So the thing is, this is Maslow's hierarchy. And if you haven't studied it, do study it. It's a psychology ka concept. I mean, I know it. I know Fatma will know it. Maybe Uzma has come across this in some of her professional training. But I know Alina is very young, and maybe she hasn't seen it as yet. But do study it. It's a theme that dictates so many other concepts in education, in medicine, in learning, in professional life. So basically, Maslow was a scientist, and he said that we begin with physiologic needs. A human being has to have physiologic needs met, like food, water, and warmth. Then we need safety, we need shelter, we blah, 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 blah. Then after this, after we are safe and we have a shelter, we need a sense of belonging. So we have family and friends and community. And as a result of that, we develop a self-esteem. We think that we are, I'm somebody's daughter, I'm somebody's sister, I'm your friend, I am somebody's teacher. So I have a sense of achievement and a mastery and a recognition. Now, this is where, see, the fundamental level stops here. I develop a self esteem. I am somebody. I have a set of values to adhere to. Zuho Allah wala shuma, Zuho momena musalmana shuma. This is how we think. A step above that is self actualization, where it is not just following a rote set of principles that makes us feel fulfilled. It is actually being creative, giving our best. Yeah, this stage, I call this moment. For me, I wish I could rewrite it. I wish I had time. So this is a Musalman wala, or even belonging. This is a Musalman wala stage. Tiksho ka na? Da Musalman de, da la ilaha illallah veli di. Then dinapas da momin de. Aga iman rode de, aga vechi bas har se tik di or dasi di or dasi di. De da pasa, this is Mohsin. एहसान करने वाला, बेहतरीन काम करने वाला. Quran ke ze, if you see, it is Inna lazina amanu wa amilu swalihat. Da aga this da. Amilu swalihat chidekana, giving your best to this life, giving your best to this world is self-actualization. So if we stop here, we are stretching the rubber band towards becoming fundamentalist, towards justifying our actions because of something completely external to us. Aga dasi veli, da khu aga hadis de, da khu aga dasi de, da khu dasi de. It is true, che aga dasi de, but how does it affect our life? Does it affect any action that we do in this life? So they know their values and principles and why they are justified in holding them. So they know if somebody asks us, तो हर मुंज ना अवल चार दाम वली न के. So it's a question. The Quran ki khudi che har munz na aval bake bya, and we have no idea. We get confused. We start asking each other because we don't have the knowledge. We did not take time to study. They live out the worldview strongly and tend to want to bring others to adopt their worldview as well. So these people who are self-actualized are the ones who will attract others to their way of life, are actually the ones who are living their vision, who are spreading their vision. Okay, so characteristics of self-actualized people, and I have a link here. You can. It's a simple reading. This is not a complicated reading. They're self-accepting. They don't complain. They don't feel like victims. They don't need pity parties. I mean, I need pity party. I know. They're open and spontaneous, which all of us Pathans are, alhamdulillah. They are realistic. They know their limits. They are responsible. They are accountable. They enjoy the journey and just not the destination. They are autonomous. Gora, independent, they're not independent, they're interdependent. We will find out. But they're autonomous. They are strong in their decisions. They can stand behind their word, enjoy solitude and privacy. That's a very important sign, a surprising sign, actually. Okay. So now this is the most boring article that I have shared in this entire workshop. Let me just warn you. This is extremely boring and extremely dry reading. But I want you to go over it. Go read it to each other so that how does a worldview come about? We have a knowledge, and then we have intuition, and then we have revelation. We call this wahi. Okay, so they call it revelation. Then there are external stimuli. People make us angry, people make us feel sad, people make us have self-pity, and then we give a response. So and this blue thing is the worldview. We give a response based on our worldview, not based on the stimulus. This is a very important concept to realize. We respond to people based on the worldview. The way I will respond will be completely different from somebody else. One of you will respond in a completely different way compared to the other. Okay? Even though you're living maybe under the same roof. And that is why the worldview is so important. That is why having a correct and well thought out worldview is so important. Now, I'm just throwing these terms at you because I didn't want to stay on that article. That is a very thick article. The thing is, just remember these things, and I'll be sharing the PowerPoint. The key is not to prioritize what is on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. So if I think that, studying a book, for example, the Quran is the ultimate book. That studying the Quran is my priority, but I don't put it in my schedule. I just say, yeah, I'll just study it every morning. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. In order to inculcate that habit, you have to schedule it as a priority. To change ourselves effectively, we first need to change our perceptions. So, to say that if only people would leave me alone, I would become so great. That's not possible. I have to say, if only I know how to deal with people, if only I know how to have me time, um, everything will work out. Oh, thank you, Padma. So the way we see the problem is the problem. The problem is no problem. No problem. Believe me, Allah says, I don't burden you beyond your capacity. But the way we look at the problem, if I feel overwhelmed, if I say, oh my God, why me? That is where the problem starts. And I learned this through a very, very emotional experience, that one of my students who was an orphan came to me and he was crying and he said, Madam, I scored so well, and he had done very well in an exam. And I started crying too. And he looked at me and he said, Madam, why are you crying? The boy was an orphan. Why are you crying? Our prophet was an orphan. Look at what a great man he is. And that was the ultimate, I learned in that one moment. If you want to ask me, how my worldview changed in a moment, that was one moment. That this boy knows the value of being an orphan. So we see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it. So, being an orphan is the ultimate tragedy, I think. And this boy was reminding me of the best orphan of the world, of the entire universe, I think. And that is something that really, really changed my worldview. So while our daily routines, like I said, that we have to schedule our priorities, there are there are gifts. And then again, I've linked an article here that they give us structure and predictability and a sense of control in a world that may feel chaotic. Hello. Oh my God. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so we have a guest. The guest woke up. And knowing what to expect allows me to focus my energy on what matters most. So routines are very useful that way, really useful. My morning routine is sacred, and I I wrote this because my morning routine. Oh yeah, Alhamdulillah, thank you. My morning routine is really sacred. I cannot let go of it. If somebody disrupts that flow, um, a last minute meeting is scheduled or something, it can just throw my whole week. I won't say my one day, it can throw my week off balance. So that is a good thing about routines, but then there is the underside. Routines aren't just about productivity, they're also about comfort. We find a comfort zone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the okay. I have to keep showing her own picture in the thing so that she's entertained. Ah, Rahma. So routines are about, it's something it's our comfort zone. And no creativity happens in comfort zones. We know that. Yeah. Also, in a workplace, routines help me navigate the noise and complexity of the day. They are my anchor. So basically, creativity and creative thinking, thinking outside the box, seeking solutions, critical thinking, nothing happens in a routine. One has to step out of their routine. One has to feel something that is unusual for them to feel in order to be creative, not productive. Productive, of course, routines, you are productive under a routine as well. As much as I rely on routines, they can be rigid. And when something unexpected happens, like a canceled meeting or a sudden change of plans, it can feel like the ground has shifted beneath me. And it is not just frustrating, it is disorienting. It takes me a little time to recalibrate and figure out how to adapt. And I feel stuck and anxious or even overwhelmed. Yes. Yes, yes. So again, we need to discuss tunnel vision versus world vision. That is something, if you want to take one thing from this lecture, it is tunnel vision versus world vision. One was the perception, how we look at the problem is actually the problem. The second concept that I want you to take away is tunnel vision. I'm just looking at my own problem rather than the big picture. And it's very easy to happen. It really quickly overtakes our thinking. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Then, since we have perceptions, they are called paradigms. A perception is just how I'm looking at something. A paradigm is the big picture. Here. Ta-da. Ta-da. Okay. So, judgment versus incident versus strength. Judgment is what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? It assumes an inherent fault. Something is wrong. That is what, when we look at a situation, that's how we think. Then I'm behaving this way because of something that happened to me. This approach is trauma based. It is curious and aware of the prevalence of trauma at work. So the first is to think that maybe there is something wrong with me. That is why this is happening to me. The second is maybe, this is happening to me because XYZ, because it always happens, because this is how people behave, because world is unfair, because life is unfair. But then there is a strength paradigm, and it is strength based. It changes the way we look at behavior and we reframe the same situations in a positive manner. And I will send you examples in the group of strength paradigm. I have 3 or 4 very good examples. I just need to compose them for you. So basically, we have to look at things that are in our favor, not against us. In order to save ourselves from victim mentality, from self pity, from negative thinking, from so much, we should only look at things that are in our favor, not at things that are working against us. And that's not very hard to do. It just needs to be practiced. And then when nothing favors me, and Alhamdulillah, we are all Muslims, so we know that there is never a situation when nothing favors me. The greatest force in the world is, when me becomes we, when we know that I'm not alone, when we know that there is somebody there to hold me immediately, that there is somebody who has held me through all the thick and thin of life. And Alhamdulillah, I'm teaching Muslims, so I don't have a problem explaining that, and I'm sure that all of you do not have a problem understanding that. I think we'll take a break here, and then I'm going to stop recording. Let me just stop recording here, and I will